welcome to Business Talk Sister Gawk. I'm Bekkah, and today's podcast episode topic is how to buy from Alibaba. And the reason I wanted to do an episode on this topic is because it's something I have really wondered about for a long time. And just in the realm of people who do all these classes on purchasing for Amazon and all this kind of stuff, Alibaba has come up multiple times. And so I've always wondered, what exactly do you do and how does it work, and is it safe? Like, there's so many things. So I wanted to do some experimenting with it, and then also wanted to just document some of the experiences that I've had so far. So first of all, what is Alibaba? Well, it's kind of like the wholesale version of Amazon, but for Asia, basically. And I mean, they ship globally, they have manufacturers globally, but it's a Chinese company and started there and serves a lot of Asia as well. So they actually have a couple different business brands. You may have heard of Tmall or AliExpress. AliExpress is basically like Amazon, but for quite a few different countries outside of the United States. So that's kind of part of their overall market platform. But the reason why Alibaba is so interesting to me is because it's a wholesale marketplace. And so for that, you're looking at connecting with manufacturers and suppliers. And I believe that it's probably one of the easiest ways to get in front of or just see what other suppliers and manufacturers are out there and what they have to offer, because you can search quite a few different things and come back with lots of results from different countries and people offering you things. So there's so much there. So I'm going to get in a little bit more to the details. So first, before we get started, can Alibaba be safe? And I would say I do want to talk about this in a couple different veins because I've always been super nervous about trying it out. And part of the reason is because I've seen a lot of people say, oh, you should only do things through putting up an escrow account if you're going to order a product, to make sure when you get the product it's quality before you release the funds, because sometimes people will sell you things that are not what you ordered, and you'll receive it and it'll be completely different. I mean, a lot of consumers, you've already had that experience with buying from a company that you have never heard of before, and then you get the product and it's not anything like the description or the picture. And so that happens on like a larger scale with manufacturers when they try to cut corners on quality and all that kind of stuff. So that was like a very big red flag for me of feeling very skittish about trying out. Like, I don't want to lose a bunch of money if I'm going to try to do a wholesale order on something. Well, what Alibaba does with that, because I think it is a concern for a lot of people, is you can pay for, I think it's like $48 or something for this extra service of like quality inspection, which, and then also it makes sure that they ship the product out on time, all that kind of stuff. So I would say, if you're not using Alibaba, there are companies out there that do quality inspections. Like, you can pay someone to do that for you, for the country that you're looking at, working with, and all of that. I would say finding those people and making sure that you can trust them and they're legit and everything, that takes a lot of research and effort. If you want to go to all of that research and effort, go for it. I do not frown upon that. I think that's great. But I just think that there is an option within Alibaba, like, to kind of mitigate some of that risk, where they do have people that they've vetted to be able to do those things for you. So, and shipping is another thing, like making sure that they deliver on time and all of that. So there is a process for like trade assurance that's in place as well, in regards to if you have an issue with your order, like after you receive it or whatever, there's like a protection process that Alibaba has. The other things that I would recommend looking at in terms of like the suppliers themselves are, one, how long they've been on the platform for, other customer reviews. I mean, you would do the same thing with Amazon when you look at random products, right? So it's good to make sure that you're looking at other customer reviews, even if it's not for the same product that you're looking at. if they sell quite a few things within a specific industry niche, it's helpful to look at other people's reviews just to see what their customer service experience was like, what they expected when they got the product, how were the instructions clear on how to use the product. Like, there's a lot of stuff there. So, I would say there are very, very different reasons to why you would order through Alibaba for something, or just like from an international manufacturer in general. So you really like have to make it specific to your situation and if it really truly does make sense. Because in my experience, like for smaller products and stuff, if I want to order a sample, sometimes going through the process, like if I'm not very serious about getting a bulk order that, yes, I know I'm going to need like over 1,000 units or whatever of something, I would not want to just go and order a couple things, because first of all, a sample, it'll come to you in like a couple days, like 7 days, I think max is like they usually ship by air for those. But sometimes the price point on just the sample is almost the same price because you have to pay for shipping. A lot of times the sample is free, but you have to pay for the shipping. That cost is so high that you could probably just go get whatever you wanted at the regular store and probably pay less. So it's really, I think a good thing in some ways to really mitigate, like, are you really serious about this? Don't be wasting people's time, and don't waste your time, So I would just throw that out there. I've not seen a manufacturer yet that does free shipping on samples. Mostly it's just the free sample itself, but shipping's like $40 for a very lightweight item. So I would just kind of take that into consideration. If you're trying to get samples, know that you should be budgeting to get a couple samples from a couple manufacturers to check the quality before you make a bigger investment, because it's good to compare and really, like, I do think there is a quality difference between different people. So I just want to throw that out there as something that I think would be good to take into consideration. Now, before I get off of is Alibaba safe or can you trust it, I would say that in general, like if it's not made in the United States, like an application or whatever, I do have a hard time downloading any kind of app. Just in general. So if that's a concern for you, I totally get it. I would just recommend then going on the web browser and using that for all of your stuff, and just don't ever download anything onto your phone. Like, that's totally fine. In general, rule of caution for me is I always try to not download anything onto my devices. If I can see it on the internet and it doesn't make me download anything to be able to use it, I'm more comfortable in general, just because there's a lot of things out there that that's one of the number one ways that older people get their computers taken over and all that kind of stuff. So just be safe and wise in how you use things. So that's my one other piece of caution there. Okay, so in terms of how long does it take to get products from Alibaba? Well, we kind of talked about that shipping by air being 7 days. One of the things that I've found is that it does also depend on the size of the product, the quantity, all of that. And the shipping times are not very clear when you are dealing with, say, like your first proposal that they send you, because a lot of times they'll say, oh, it'll be ready in 7 to 10 days, but that's like ready to leave the country and get onto a boat. It's not like it's going to be at your house in 7 to 10 days. So I think that's really, really valuable to understand, that it's important to keep asking questions, because a lot of times there's still a language barrier between you and that other person you're talking to. Even if they are speaking English, there's still a lot there of miscommunication that can happen between what is the delivery time. That could mean like getting it to the United States. That could mean getting it to the port. That could mean, all these different things. So it's really important to just say, how much time will it take you to prepare my product for shipping? What is the time that it will take in transit? How long will it be before it gets to me? Do I have to use a logistics company, or is that something you will take care of? And do I have to pay taxes and duties and customs when it gets to the port? These are all questions that I would ask because it's really different for every single manufacturer. Some manufacturers are like, don't worry about it. We do all the logistics. We'll ship it for you. We'll get it to the warehouse in the US. We'll make sure it gets on a transit place. And then we will also work with a logistics company to ship it to you. Or we have a logistics provider and this is who they are. With smaller items, like if you're getting a bunch of stuff and it's not like a truckload, a lot of times they'll use like UPS or USPS and then you'll just get them all in the mail. But those tracking IDs, those are only good once they actually hit USPS, right? Or hit UPS because at the warehouse, it's still in customs. And sometimes like with your order on Alibaba, it'll show you this is where it is. But it won't tell you like what port it's at. It'll just say in review with customs. And so if you have a product that you think is going to be a little bit more sensitive, there may be more stuff that you have to go through or they'll do additional checks. And I'm going to be honest with you. If you buy something from another country that is not allowed into the United States, that is your problem. Okay? So I just want to make sure that I put that out there because there are a lot of standards that we have in the United States that other people don't have. Sometimes they can have certifications on their manufacturer page and say, yes, we're certified for all these things. But I honestly, like, I would not touch with a 10-foot pole anything to do with organic or anything to do with food in general. Because even if your product is like a really great product and you did everything right, first of all, it's going to be in a shipping container if it's going over the sea for 20 to 30 days and it's hot. And when it gets to the warehouse, I mean, who knows where they're going to put it? It could be outside in the sun in one of those shipping containers for a super long time. So you have like spoilage going on, expiration dates start ticking. Like there's just so many extra variables there. And like in general, the margins on the food industry is like 2% margin. So, I mean, unless you are so passionate about your granola, I would really steer clear of that category, but that's just me personally. So yeah, then basically what do you do to evaluate quality? Now, the first cross check I would say is to not only look at the listing, but then ask them for pictures of the product. And so say like you like what they have on their listing, but you want to change it or you want to customize it. A lot of people buy from Alibaba because they have the opportunity to white label a product, put their logo on it, sell it as their own. That's why you have like 18 different brands of the exact same spoon on Amazon. It's because they're all buying from the same place and just putting their logo on it. So it's definitely some place that a lot of people do that. So you can do a lot of customization, but you really need to make sure that they're sending you pictures of whatever they're saying they can do. Because sometimes they'll say, oh yeah, no problem, we can do that. And then later on you look into it and you're like, that's not what I asked for. So it's good to make sure that you have the right stuff. And then on top of that, like you can get really specific in your specifications of what you're looking for. And I would really narrow down your top suppliers to get samples from so that you can check the quality of the product. And that's not always possible with bigger products. Like I know some people say, well, the only reason I would look at Alibaba is because I want this really big piece of equipment and I don't need 10 of them. I need one and that's it. And so I get it. Like that's not always possible. If that's not possible, there is a way a lot of times that people already are selling that product white labeled on Amazon or on another website or maybe in person at a store. So sometimes it is just going to a store and looking at the product there and evaluating it and figuring out, okay, where did this come from? Like what country of origin? And then if you can look at that and you look at the specs just like of the design and everything, it'll really help you figure out what possible manufacturers it came from so that you can get what you want and it'll be the same quality with like maybe the customizations you're looking for yourself. So I would just say the best way though to compare manufacturers and get out there, like understand what you want, is there's this RFP function within Alibaba, and I think that that is really useful. And here's why, right? So I can go to a store or search online for what I want and find a picture of it. And when I do that and I say, this is exactly what I'm looking for, and these are the specifications of how I want to modify this or whatever, you can put all of that in an RFP, and that's a request for a proposal. You're creating that, you're saying, send me proposals. This is what I'm looking for. And then all of a sudden, all of these manufacturers have your information, especially if there's certain keywords that they've labeled their business for, that will ping for them. And then their salespeople will reach out to you in a message and say, hey, this is what I have available. And they'll sometimes send you pictures. They'll sometimes send you quotes. Sometimes they don't speak English like at all. They send you stuff that's not even close to what you're asking for. And you're like, no, you didn't even read what I asked for. But that's okay. So that's just kind of par for the course when you do that. But the nice thing about it is that then all of a sudden, people are saying, I want your business. And there's a really big difference between reaching out to a manufacturer based on their listing. They kind of have the advantage, right? Because they are like answering your questions. You came to them, you saw what the price was on the listing, all of that. But if you do the RFP method, they're competing with one another and they know you're comparing multiple people, and it's a lot more fun sometimes to negotiate. So when you have somebody that says, okay, well, I can do this and this for you, and you're getting like almost the same deal, if not better, from somebody else who's going to do the exact same thing, then it really comes down to their customer service, right? And what else they can do. So you can say, oh, I'm getting the same deal here, or they're like a penny cheaper, whatever. Would you be willing to go down? Would you increase your production time? Like whatever you're looking for, that's where, and it doesn't always have to be pricing that you're negotiating on. You can say, like, is there anything you can do that's better for me than what these people are doing? And a lot of times they want the business, so they're going to work with you and they're going to say, yeah, no problem. Like, we can throw in this extra thing for the same price or whatever. And so I wouldn't say it's all about negotiating on price. And quite honestly, you should not be that person that says, oh, I can get this for cheaper, like over here and blah, 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 blah. When you haven't even checked the quality, like, don't do that, because you could really put yourself in a really poor spot when you have to like eat humble pie and come back and be like, okay, yeah, I totally messed up with that first supplier, even though they were cheaper. They didn't give me what I wanted. And then you have to come back to the one that you were dissing to begin with. So just be respectful of people. And honestly, I've had some salespeople that have laughed at me and thought I didn't know what I was talking about, which, to be fair, some of the time I have no idea what I'm talking about. And I'm like, what about this? And I'm not a very specific person when it comes to like technical terms. So, but it does affect, your relationship, because you're thinking, I'm going to spend a lot of money with this person. And if I have an issue, I want to know that if I reach out to them, they're going to be able to help me solve it, whether it's education and training on using what I'm ordering, or whether it's having a quality issue and them making it right and trying to update me with like how they're going to resolve it, whatever. So make sure that you're really feeling that out with the suppliers that you're communicating with. I would say that you should expect the negotiation and communication process to take like a month, because you're going to be messaging them. They're in a different time zone. They're not going to respond to you. Sometimes they work like all night long, which is crazy and super great when you're trying to get something done fast. But just expect that it's going to be a while, and they might not see it the same day because they're completely on the other side of the world or whatever. And you should be having the same conversation with multiple manufacturers, because honestly, especially for like equipment for your business, if you're buying something like that, you really want to learn all that you can about what you need before you buy it. And the salespeople are really good at being like, yeah, and this is going to be something you need to watch out for here, because if this wears down, then you're going to have to buy replacement parts. So it's really important to make sure that this quality is adhered to here. And also, what your application is may not be the best for this unit, but you might be able to get away with something a little bit more compact or whatever. So, I mean, there's just a lot of stuff there that it's really helpful to learn from multiple different companies, because the best salespeople are educators, and they also will help you make an informed decision so that you can really truly be satisfied with your purchase. So that's just my perspective, anyways, of what I've learned. So then the next question is Alibaba cheaper than purchasing elsewhere? And I would say, quite honestly, I mean, coming back to, this is a wholesale website. So buying in bulk is going to be one of the ways that I've seen some really good savings. But packaging is definitely a huge cost savings. So, like, if you are thinking about, okay, I want to buy this, but I'm gotta get it fast, and I don't really have time for them to design packaging for it, I'll just get it done in the United States. Um, that can really kill you. I'm just gonna say, packaging is expensive. So it's good to just take it slow, and it can be a huge savings if you have the time to invest in R&D to make sure you get it right for what you want. And so I think that's a really big piece of it. Bulk orders, definitely you're going to drive your costs down. I would say in general, from a lot of the different people that I know, as well as trainings I've been to, and just like other boutiques or retail stores, when I talk to them about where they're trying to hit for margin, in general, just in general, like even in the United States, because I have products that I make in the US and I sell to people sometimes, and wholesalers will say, well, I'm looking to get a 50% markup on that or whatever. And then you have to negotiate from there on your product. So, like, in the same way, if you're looking at Alibaba as a source, you really have to think about what is your margin and what are you going to mark it up, because if it's not at a price point that you feel like you're going to get a good margin on, then it's really not worth making the investment. And honestly, I don't even know if it would be worth being in that industry, just gonna say. Or maybe that specific product category. So the other way that I have seen savings is that many manufacturers have products in the US with businesses in the US already set up. But if you start looking at what they're offering, they're selling the same product to other countries for a steeply discounted price. So you have the ability a lot of times to say, oh, well, like GE, a perfect example. They sell washers and dryers for really expensive in the US, but to India, they can sell way cheaper. And it's just because of their market, and they know that PPP marketing mix, right? So what I'm trying to say is, look, I'm not saying GE's on there. I highly doubt they are, especially in shipping to the United States. But what I am trying to say is that there may be other products that you're already familiar with that you need for your business, or like you would like to retail for your business, and buying it from a US manufacturer is basically like they're doing the legwork of being the middleman of buying it from other countries, because it says it's made in Taiwan or India or whatever on the box. It's not, they're not making it themselves. They're just white labeling it, getting it to the US, and selling it to you. So there's definitely opportunity to be had there. Or even like products that you use a lot of. Like, here's an example I've always thought about. Like a roofing company, you buy all these screws and nails from these different kind of manufacturers, but the reality is they're just bulk ordering them and reselling them to you. So what is the opportunity there to cut costs? And I mean, then you run into a storage problem if you're really buying in bulk. But factoring all those things in, right? I would just think that there's a way to save money on products for your business or for retail or whatever, if you be smart about it. So I think Alibaba can be a solution for some people. Quite honestly, they're just like Amazon, so they do take a cut of the transaction. So if there's a way for you to like find manufacturers outside of Alibaba that are offering you the same thing that you want, you may be able to get an even lower price because they're not having to pay Alibaba a fee. So, I mean, it's just a really great place to start and get some ideas. And then from there, you can really work through a lot more things. Caveat to working with people external to Alibaba. A lot of the manufacturers on Alibaba are very experienced with working with US customs. So just know that you're probably going to be working a lot more with like transportation management companies and stuff like that, and people who help you with customs. And yeah, so just keep that in mind. Those are additional fees. And if a company is not giving you a price point that includes taxes and fees, you're going to have to pay those out, or like the shipping and whatever else. So just make sure that you really factor in all of those costs when you're looking into what it takes to get you your product, because I could see where those things would eat you really fast if you're not paying attention to them or you were surprised by them. One of the areas that I recently learned about was certain companies, they will get it to the US, they will ship it to you through, say, UPS, but when you get it in the mail, you have to pay the customs then and any kind of like other fees that are associated with it. And so those things, they don't know like what it's going to be that you'll have to pay on that specific product category or whatever. They might not be able to tell you off the top of their head. And so once it gets to you, then you get like this surprise little bill that you have to figure out. So yeah, so that I think is really good to just be aware of. And now we're going to transition to the gawk portion for a very quick gawk. About transportation. You may have heard of this happening, but in March of 2024, there was a bridge that collapsed in Baltimore because a ship hit it. And this was really tragic. I mean, it really, truly was. But what the after effects were in that area specifically is that there was a ton of shipping companies that receive overseas freight into their warehouses along that river. And when the Baltimore Bridge collapsed, it ended up having to reroute tons of shipping containers. And what ended up happening, and this is just my personal experience, but what ended up happening is that it backlogged pretty much everyone on the East Coast to receiving shipping containers because now everyone had to divert where they were coming in. And that was crazy for a lot of people. So there was a lot of backup. Not as bad as like during COVID and stuff, but it was a pretty significant issue where they had to reroute everything, and then a lot of things were put on back order, or you just didn't know where your shipment was until it hit like customs. So stuff like that does happen to people, and I feel like it happens actually more regularly than people realize. And so I would just really caution, just in my experience, I had a deadline coming up and I didn't know where my shipment was coming in or when it was going to get to me or anything. And I didn't have any tracking capabilities until like it actually hit customs. So I would really caution you to plan in advance and don't put your deadlines like, oh, I should have enough time. Like the company says this and I know I can deliver by this day, then whatever. Like give yourself ample room to get your product in and make sure that you have everything ready to go before you need to deliver it, because that can get really dicey. I don't want that for you. I also don't want you to be sitting on it for 6 months at your house, swimming in product. So, kind of figure out where your happy medium is there, but know that stuff like that does happen. And so it's good to just try to be strategically patient in how you prepare to do larger orders. So there you go. That's just what I would recommend for how to buy on Alibaba. And I hope that it was helpful information for you. If you have questions about it, definitely send me an Instagram message or whatever. And if you enjoyed it, you should give it a review on Apple Podcasts.